The journey really started in the hospital.
He told you that, okay, you can sit in a wheelchair the rest of your life, or you can get your legs taken off.
You know, the Ironman is the most iconic race, 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, and then the 26.2 mile run right after. For some reason, I just felt compelled that if I can get out of this hospital, this is what I want to do. It's just spent a lot of time in the rehab. It's sad because I've had people tell me like, oh man, I couldn't do that. And I look at them and they have their legs and they're able to walk just fine. And I'm like, yeah, you could. You know, you put down the cigarettes and you could do a lot of things.
All right, folks, welcome to the Gritty Bowman podcast. We're back in the studio here, and I'm here with Sidney Smith. And hopefully you guys listened to the last episode we did where we kind of talked about the film that was produced recently in partnership with Mountain Ops and V6 Media. Is it Media?
Yep, V6 Media.
V6 Media with Kobe Coonrad.
Mm-hmm.
And but I wanted to have you on the podcast because I wanted to dive more into your story, you know, and having watched the little documentary film about you, there's just so much that they can cover in a few minutes, and it's very inspiring. But I want to get your real story here on the podcast. That's a lot deeper than that. I think it's an amazing story. So let's get into that. So tell me about this disease. What is it called?
It's called Charcot-Marie-Tooth.
Okay, so Charcot-Marie-Tooth. And for those that are listening, Sidney is you have this disease, mm-hmm. which ultimately resulted in the amputation from the knee down of your both legs, mm-hmm. And since that time, you've been able to accomplish some pretty remarkable things in spite of this physical setback, and you've got quite a story to tell. And so that just gives everyone some background that didn't listen to the other podcast we did. And so
Charcot-Marie-Tooth, or some people just for short CMT.
CMT.
Country Music Televisions.
Yeah, no doubt. So you have this disease. So you didn't know you had this disease until you were 12?
Yep, 12. It just noticed, like, playing with friends, I just wasn't as good at things. I'd trip a little bit, and then it became prominent, like the lower feet became kind of disfigured and deforming, and so that's when we went into the doctor and be like, hey, what's going on here? So what is the condition? It's a muscular dystrophy is what they put the category in, mm-hmm. And then it's genetic, so you can carry it, or somewhere down the line someone gave it to me, but it progresses. So usually it starts very moderate, and then as you get older, some things can trigger it. They don't really know for sure, and it could affect your hands, and your feet are the most prominent places. Mm-hmm. And then there's other places too, like in my hips and my quads, that I can feel a little bit of it. So, okay,
and so it just sort of over time causes. Is it an autoimmune reaction, or is it?
It's
like your body attacking itself?
No, it's not sending the correct signals through the nerves, and then the muscles themselves, because it's not getting the right signals, they become atrophy.
Oh.
So like I had chicken legs for the longest time, and even now, like as I run, I still get fatigue in certain areas that other people are stronger in. But luckily most of that effect was from the knee down.
Okay. So you're around 12 years old, and you're finding out at this time. So before that, you just struggled with some of your physical abilities.
Yeah.
And it progressively got worse, mm-hmm. to the point where, your parents were like, I think we have something really wrong here, and they took you to the hospital.
Yeah, we went to a foot specialist and Primary Children's here in Salt Lake, which is an amazing place, and spent a lot of time there as a kid getting surgeries and try to reconstruct it. Try to fix it each way they can, and then I got certain braces similar to what like Forrest Gump had. So I had that for Oh man, up into my 30s. So.
Okay. And then, when did it become a situation where what led to the amputation?
Well, it came to the point where, I got married, had kids, and I just didn't want to think about my own problems, I guess, at the time. And so I let it get out of control, got worse. But I, kept trying to be the breadwinner. Mm-hmm. So the more work that I put onto it, the more it started affecting it. And it became very painful where like the bones would start breaking on a regular basis. And then I get blisters and all kinds of problems where it was just like, really trying to go to the bathroom was very painful, or just around lunchtime I was done, just extremely bad. And I, avoided pain pills the best I can, just really stuck to Aleve and anti-inflammatories just because I know how bad I've seen affect lives and affect friends that, Percocets and those opioids do. But, so I avoided that. And, it wasn't until, I went to a specialist in my early 30s that he says, this day I knew was going to come because it was a doctor I saw as a kid. Mm-hmm. And, he said, we can give you a couple options. And one of them was pretty much being in a wheelchair and doing very minimal things, or we could take the chance and do prosthetics and do an amputation.
So how does the amputation help? Is it something that spreads, or it just is affecting that part of your body? Or
yeah, it's just affecting that part of the body so far. Like, there are people that it affects other parts, but for me, so far, it's just in my feet and a little bit in my hands, but heavily in my feet, to the point where like it deformed where most people's ankle was. Mm-hmm. It's where my heel ended up being, so it just had completely rolled over.
Okay. So when he told you that, okay, you can sit in a wheelchair the rest of your life, or you can get your legs taken off, and he offered prosthetics?
Yeah. I mean, it actually was something that I wanted to know. Like, deep down, I had an idea that could be an option. Mm-hmm. Just because it just felt like, this was surgery number 10. How is this going to get any better? I was almost discouraged. And so when he said prosthetics, it was almost like a sigh of relief. And, I cried a lot in the office that day, and my dad was there, and he knew it too, because the doctor had told him, at a young age, this boy he's too active and he's doing too much. He's going to ruin his feet to the point where he probably will have amputation. So my dad knew it. Didn't tell me, obviously, because it would mess me up as a kid, I think. So but at the time, I was mature enough and I understood that was the best possibility. And it just was almost, instead of it being, depressing it was a little bit, because it was my feet and I knew it was going to be a hard road, but I was more relieved that this was an option that could give me an opportunity. So I was willing to take that risk.
So, how long then before you actually had the amputation done?
Well, I wanted to try to get them both done in a single calendar year for insurance purposes.
Yeah.
So I waited till January. And I did one at a time at first, because the left would have been easier to get around with and get used to, like driving a car, because of the right foot, and then crutches and stuff like that. So getting to work. So I wanted to go that route, but it was a disaster. I had an infection just right off the start on the left one.
Yeah, you talked about that, where you were having some phantom pain and stuff from the post-surgery, and they actually had to go in and amputate more.
Yeah. It was a few months later that it just having all kinds of problems, and it was when they kind of took the cast off, it was all green and yellow, and And it was just, and I was sick all the time, and so I couldn't figure it out. And I lived so far away from my doctor. It was partially my fault for not getting up to the Salt Lake area closer. But at the same time, it could have happened during surgery. It could have happened, at any time where those stitches were right there. So, yeah, they amputated a little bit higher. But at that time, I was just so frustrated with, the whole being in a hospital and rehab and not getting around and doing things and being a burden to other people that I wanted to just do them both at the same time and get it over with.
So then you went in, and when you went back in for the second surgery on the left, you just had the right taken off at the same time. And then tell me about that. Like, what was it like having the legs gone?
It just felt like a dream, because it's like, I can't believe this is actually happening at first.
Yeah. Little disbelief.
And, it's something, obviously, I did a lot of meditating and praying about and talking to my wife to see, obviously this is a big part of her life now too. And, support group was much needed. So I needed to see how my parents and how my in-laws and we had young kids. This was a big decision. And so it just felt very cloudy at first. And then when you wake up, it was demoralizing. It was depressing, just because what was there is now gone. And not until the next life is you're ever going to see it again.
Yeah.
And it kind of sinks in a little bit. And, there's a lot of tears in the hospital for sure.
So tell me about the journey going from that to where you are now, because now you're you're doing some triathlon coming up.
Yeah.
You've done a few already.
Yep.
And you've got a marathon you're going to run. And a marathon is what, 16 miles?
26.2.
26.2, a half. Okay. Dude, that's a lot of miles. What's the farthest you've run on those prosthetics?
16 and a half right now is my long run. I was having some piriformis syndrome in the back of my hip, and some of it, the doctor says I'm going to have hip problems because of the disease. There are muscles that just never developed because I wasn't as active as I could be now. So I've had some struggles with it, but I just got done with a big race, and they didn't have any problems. So I'm just going to move forward, and I think this Saturday I'm going to try to push for 16 or 18 and then keep going. And then we're about a month out before the big race. But to answer your question, the journey really started in the hospital. Just spent a lot of time in the rehab watching YouTube videos of, hunting and that kind of stuff. And it wasn't really on TV in the background where the Ironman was playing. And, the Ironman is the most iconic race. It's 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, and then the 26.2 mile run right after. And I'm like, for some reason, I just felt compelled that if I can get out of this hospital, this is what I want to do. So it's just been a journey, each step, and getting to learn to walk and run, and then have done triathlons. And I think my longest right now has been the half Ironman, so about half that distance.
Jeez. So you get up in the morning and you got to put your legs on.
Yeah.
And how long does that take?
I used to have a set that had vacuums in them, and that took 20 minutes. And now I have a suction seal, and that takes about 10 to 15. I'm very anal when it comes to it, just because I want it perfect. Like, the sock can't be wrinkled. It has to have the certain comfort. Everything needs to be perfect, and so it takes me a little longer.
Yeah. And what are the things that you can do? Like, you're a big time archery hunter. You love to bow hunt. And you can get around in the woods and do all that. Yeah.
That surprisingly worked well. Like, I know a lot of people that just have one and it's a struggle, but for me, I'm not perfect. I'm not like you, man. I don't know if I can keep up with you, but the uneven ground is different. So I just found ways to accommodate, like, just really backpacking or hiking with a backpack and using trekking poles. Even though I'm not hauling any meat, I still like to use the trekking poles because it helps with balance.
Right.
Just like different attachments for, to if I need to get the gun or the bow or something like that. Just overall practicing and going with people, and then using it into my triathlon training is actually doing a little backpack cardio type of stuff. So that helps.
Yeah. So, but you get around. So you also hunt, and it's got to be a little harder to be sneaky, though. I mean,
yeah, it is. And there's things that I've had opportunities where it just didn't work out, just because you don't have that toes where it just kind of rolls, and I can take my shoes off and not worry about thorns, so I don't have to. That's not a big deal.
Well, you can hands and knees it.
Yeah, I hands and knees it. Last year, I tried to do a turkey reap where you kind of sneak up behind a decoy and scoot up, and I just took my legs off and just crawled and tried. Fortunately, I tried to do it self-filming at the same time, and that was a joke. I don't know how you guys do it, but
not very successful.
No, it's like, gosh, how did he? I like Tim Burnett. I don't like how does he do that? Dude, it's insane.
You got to have special respect for him and Remy.
Yeah.
I hear people talk about, filming being a pain in the rear. Try self-filming. That's a whole nother ballgame.
Oh my gosh.
So, but you can take the legs off and sneak around a little bit like that. I imagine like sitting in a blind or a tree stand is probably.
Yeah. That's not bad. I could do that. I don't prefer it. I don't know if it's ADD or ADHD. I don't know if I have that, but I would rather
get out,
spot and stock and get
out
up
and sneak on them.
Yeah.
So, now that it's been how many years since you've had the prosthetics?
About 2.5 years now.
So still
since
new?
The prosthetics, about 2, because I couldn't wear
since
them
the surgery.
2.5 up. Yeah.
So not that long.
No,
not that long. So is it pretty normal for someone to be able to walk around in prosthetics that's had an amputation like this?
It's tough. I don't know, like personally, very many amputees. I live in a small town, and most amputations are actually not trauma. It's usually like vascular or like diabetes is the most common. And usually when they're at that point, their health isn't very high, and they're usually overweight, and that causes all kinds of complications that I don't have. But there are some unique individuals that just bounce up. Like it took me a while to finally got it, but once I got it, and I really feel like I can do even more with these. But I think I was blessed with having an amazing surgeon that performed the surgery that allowed me to be more weight bearing. So between the tibia and fibia, he put a bridge there. So I'm actually working, and it's a long process to the point where I can walk on my stumps. And where other people, that would just kill them.
Too much pain?
Yeah, too much pain, and the bones kind of push through this muscle and skin. So it's to be weight bearing on there. It's a long process, a lot of callousing, and the nerves eventually just give in and say, all right, this is going to be a weight bearing area, so it becomes less painful.
Wow. Yeah, that doesn't sound fun, dude. That does not sound enjoyable.
No, it's long. Like at night when I go to bed, I take my legs off and I start standing up on the mattress to see if I can get as much weight as I can, and then I work down to the carpet, and then I'm about the point where I could put maybe 50% weight on hard ground, but then it becomes too painful, and then that's it. And then each day gets a little bit further.
How old are you now?
35.
35. So, do the doctors worry about all the races and stuff that you do? They encourage it?
No, I have a couple. I try to get the ones that discourage it. I just tell them, I don't need your negativity. I have a couple that just say, take it easy. And I'm not going to be like, what do you know? They're a doctor. And so I do take it, some lightly, and some I just, feel like what's my drive and really what I feel is best. But I do feel like through this whole process that, the only way that you're going to move forward is continue to put your foot on the gas. As soon as you let go and try to get, comfortable with your settings, then that's usually where you slip and you don't realize it. So that's just been kind of my motto to get through this whole process, is just to keep pushing. The doctors that have been encouraging me running, they've been all for it. So.
And has it caused more problems, or has it made you healthier?
Healthier.
Yeah.
Yep. No problems.
And so are you then, I would imagine, more capable of living a more full life because of it,
yep.
because of pushing through?
More weight. Yep. I mean, running is, like I said earlier in the other podcast, it is the most intense thing you could do as an amputee. But I mean, biking and swimming and even weightlifting that I try to incorporate into all that, it has made me healthier. I mean, I'm just around 200 now without my legs. Before, I was 260, overweight, and I have more energy, a lot of it because of less pain, but just more energy. I'm a happier person, and a lot of it just has to do with tying in all that fitness.
Now, I've been injured, and I've seen people that are injured, and especially friends of mine that are, in their mid-40s, or even in their late 30s, where something happened and they're like, and I talked about this with Matt Davis a little bit, where they're like, I don't do this exercise anymore because when I do it, it aggravates my knee, or I don't do bench press anymore because, sometimes I get a knot behind my shoulder here and it bothers me. And I mentioned on that podcast that I feel like that's a mistake that people make, that when something's not right, or you're not able to do something with your body that your body should be able to do, rather than not working on it, my motto is, work around it, work through it. Work until you restore that strength or that capability, or until that thing gets healthier. And that doesn't mean you go and damage it further when it's damaged. It means you do the right things, but you continually keep working at it, whatever it is, to get yourself back to where you need to be. But I see too many people quit when it's hard. Like, a lot of people quit when it's hard. Yeah. And then their quality of life goes way down over the next 5, 10, 15 years. It's like a little bit at a time. At first this goes, and then this next thing goes, and I don't do this anymore, and I don't lift weights because of this, or I don't run anymore because of this. And pretty soon, 10 years, 20 years later, they're not anywhere near the guy that just fought through that stuff and kept pushing.
It makes you wonder, what would it be like if they did? It's sad, because I've had people tell me, like, oh man, I couldn't do that. And I look at them and they have their legs and they're able to walk just fine. And I'm like, yeah, you could. You can put down the cigarettes and you could do a lot of things. And yeah, they just get caught up on those limiting beliefs. It's really what it is a lot of it's more, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's some physical reasons why people can't do certain things, but I would say most of the thing that's holding you back is that mental block, whether you can't do it and you just, either you're afraid or you just don't have faith in yourself to push forward.
There had to be days where you were in a lot of pain, or where it was just really tough, or where it felt like you weren't making any progress.
Yeah. No, there was, especially before, like during that time frame from when I lost the first one to the second one. I mean, it was so hard anyways, and just being sick all the time, and a lot of depression and suicidal thoughts came through, that it just, like, I remember, pouring out to my wife. It's like, I'm done being an amputee anymore. And you just don't want to go. But luckily there's certain things that have happened to me on a spiritual side that has helped me hold on to that. And it's just that continuing push, like I said, just having your foot on the pedal, has got me through some of that. So
when you, what do you tell yourself on days where in the beginning, especially where I'm sure you're trying to walk and you couldn't walk very well. What did you tell yourself? And are you surprised at where you're at right now, or disappointed? Like what are your thoughts now with, how you live with amputated legs?
That's a good question. Yeah, I actually thought of that, quite often, where I'm at, with this film and how I've been able to share it and had a lot of feedback about it. Like I didn't think it would have gotten to that point, obviously. But like I think it's just the competitive side of me and just I'm a constant critic. I feel like I can do more. There's a lot of things, just like in my race that I had over the weekend. I train all winter long on the run. And in the end, and I wanted to cut my time off by a whole hour. I felt like I lost weight and I did so much, but I had some unexpected issues happen where my legs kept sliding off and then they'd get too swollen where I couldn't leave them on. And it ended up, I cut my time by 30 minutes, but at the same time I was mad at myself.
Yeah.
And so as much as I want to say that I've accomplished a lot, there's still a lot more that I feel like I could do and do a lot more. And it's just because I know myself, I know that I have more capabilities. So it's still a work in progress.
What did you tell yourself when you were, I am always curious, kind of the self-talk that people have, when you're feeling like this is pointless and you're down and you're depressed and things aren't working. How do you pull yourself up from that? What do you do? What are some of the strategies? What are the things you say to yourself? What are the actions you take?
Really what gets me out of that rut is, a lot of it is self-confidence, and it's something that I've had to gain. Some of it is that I look at what I have already in my life instead of focusing on what I don't have. I still have my hands. I still have my eyesight. I still have my wife. I still have beautiful kids. And, on a religious side, there's someone that's always has had it worse than me. And, being Jesus Christ, that's been a big focus for me, knowing that he's gone through everything I've gone through on an emotional, physical, or spiritual level. And a lot of the things is that, this is my story. I can choose whether I can have it had a sad ending, or I could choose whether to have it a happy ending. And what happens in between is just what life is all about. And so if I keep focusing on that ending, sometimes the ending will change, but I want it to be a happy ending. Yeah.
Yeah. What's the quote at the end of that film that you said, about
Doyle rules?
No, about life.
Challenge. Yes. Challenges is what makes life interesting. But overcoming them is what's going to make it more meaningful. And I've heard something similar to that before. And when I hear the word overcoming, it's a little bit, I look at it when I watch the film, that's the only thing I thought. And I know what I meant, but what other people may not understand, when I think of overcoming, it's more of embracing it and working with that. Instead of overcoming, sounds like you're throwing away and forgetting. And I look at my legs, like I wouldn't change it. Like if I had an opportunity to come down to this life again, I would pick this life every time because of what I've learned from it. And if I had a genie in a bottle that would say, here, do you want your legs back? I just wouldn't take it just because of what that has given to me in my life. And really, I'm as happy as I've ever been.
I think that I've said this a number of times on many podcasts that, for me, when I am down or when things seem tough, or I focus on, like when my wife had cancer, I really focused a lot on gratitude, being really thankful for what I have and not focusing on what I don't. Because like you, I said the same thing. I wouldn't change a thing. If they could come back down and say, well, Brian, you can start over and you can have this, you can marry someone else and that person won't have cancer, or go through that. And even if Suzanne had died, I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change any of that. It's been, she's the best thing in my life and has been, from the moment we met, and I wouldn't change any of that, for something else. And when you talk about, not changing your life, trading in a life where you have your legs, I think that's it shows a tremendous degree of gratitude for what you have.
Well, thank you. I mean, honestly, some people may look at something like this as a curse, and I had a buddy of mine, he messaged me about when he watched the video. He goes, my daughter saw that and she thought it was so sad. And she didn't, I don't think she had the opportunity to understand the whole point of the story, and I said, well, tell her that I am very happy and I love my life. And I think really it's more of a blessing to me than it has been a curse. And I believe and it's hard to see it at the time, but you'll find your blessings or your brightest gifts are often given to you when it's the darkest and the roughest time. And, like I said, I just wouldn't change it. Maybe some more hair on my head, but that's about it.
I'd like to be better looking, more dashing. So you've got some plans moving forward.
Yeah.
Tell me about those. Like you said already, your goals, some of those goals, and one of them is this marathon coming up.
Yeah.
Where would you like to be? What would you like to be able to do over the next, year, 3 years, 5 years? Do you have some goals that you've set?
Yeah. Well, I don't want to ruin the surprise. No, the marathon is the big jump because running is my biggest struggle. I'm not so fast, and it is a little bit painful, but and with the disease, it's held me back. So that's been my main focus, and I feel like I'll do well. Mm-hmm. My goal isn't, unless there's another double amputee, I'm just looking to finish. If there's someone that shows up, it's going to be game on. But it's not too bad of a course. I've driven it all my life. I grew up in Provo. It ends in Provo. It's going to be an emotional race. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the next goal after that would be the full Ironman. I need to lose weight. I got to cut about 20 pounds. I'm getting desperate. I may even go into meal prepping. I'm not too happy about that, yeah. But I just know there's certain things that I fall short of, and usually it's just because of junk food is very convenient sometimes.
Yeah.
There's certain things like hunting, certain things I want to do with my bow, some out of state, even out of country, and spending a lot of time also with my boys. He's growing up in the few precious years with my dad before he becomes unable to go. And then climbing. We have some goals to climb the tallest peak of Utah this summer. And then working on to other peaks like Kilimanjaro, and some other things. It just keeps on getting bigger and bigger. And where it stops, I don't know.
What do you have to say to people that are out there that are struggling with, maybe they're overweight, maybe they have some kind of physical problem that's holding them back? What do you say to those people?
I'd like to say, get off your butt and get going. But that's not gonna motivate them. It's got to come with inside. That's really what the drive is. Like, I have people best friends, brothers, that are struggling with things, and it just kills me that here I am going through what I'm doing, and why have I not inspired you to do that? This is my story, whether you are inspired by it or not. A lot of it's got to be within yourself. So start focusing on what you love about yourself, and own it. I mean, don't try to pretend like you're somebody else, because that's not who you are. For me, physical fitness has been a huge plus, because it's, with what I'm dealing with, a lot of stress and frustration. I feel like it is the best way to release that. And and whether it be swim, bike, or run, or whether it be, what's that He-Man stuff you do? CrossFit?
Just some CrossFit.
Yeah, CrossFit. There's just so much to do. And, I don't have to explain to people why being physically fit is beneficial, but I think that's a great start. And just get out and do it. And there's sometimes that I didn't feel like doing it. And those days are okay, but don't let that turn into a week and a month or you'll have a bad life. Just focus on taking that one step forward. Sometimes it will be 2 steps back, but if you keep going, that will be constantly moving forward and to the point where you'll get to where you want to be.
Yeah, I think, I've heard that the greatest antidote or medicine for depression is actually physical activity. And I think it's surprising to many who are suffering from depression how much being physically active changes the hormones in their system, changes the chemistry in their system. Their biology responds a lot. I don't think we realize how much we don't move, aren't physically active, and the body really does need that to be mentally healthy, and I think movement and exercise has a tremendous impact on in combating depression, which surprisingly a large number of people do, in spite of the fact that in our country today, we're wealthy, we're safe, we have all these things set up that really, compared to much of the world, is remarkable, and yet we're depressed.
Yeah, it blows my mind.
And I think some of that just boils down to, for people that are suffering from that, a little bit of movement, moving the body around and doing some stuff that's a little bit physically challenging, that changes a person's, it helps a lot.
You gotta do something. Like when I go to the gym, I heard someone made a comment. You walk in the gym, you walk by the pool, and there's a bunch of these older, larger people in the pool doing water aerobics. And just this kid made a comment, just being like, "Oh man, those fat asses." And I'm just like, dude, are you kidding me? I mean, water aerobics may not be,
the most
climbing,
strenuous.
Most strenuous, but they're doing something and they're cautious about it, and more kudos to them. They're getting their heart rate up. I agree. I think depression, although there are certain chemical imbalances in people, it is way too common, and I feel like some people may not even know it. And I didn't know it, that I had issue. I never took medicines for it. But exercise honestly has been the antidote to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when it comes down to, you got to start where you are too, so if you're the overweight old dude that's in the pool doing, exercises, that's where you are. That's where you start. You don't start at the 200-pound, barbell. You work your way up to where you can be, where you're healthier. But you start where you are, and there's nothing wrong with starting where you are.
Oh yeah.
People are like, well, I want to get in shape and then go to the gym. It's like, well, that just does not make sense, So
they
often
feel like they're being judged, and it's like, no.
Yeah. I think, often, it's one of those things where, you just start where you are. Get out there and start where you are, and pretty soon you'll be where you want to be.
Yeah.
So, well, anything else you want to add? Any closing comments you have for the people that are listening?
No, I mean, if you, like we said earlier, I'm just happy to share my experience. I hope, if someone watches it, that that can motivate them, that would be, the ultimate payout is to see some people that will, will make maybe an adjustment, or if it was just one extra day in the gym versus not at all. I mean, that's huge. So I appreciate really the opportunity. And
I appreciate you coming on the podcast. And for those that are listening or watching, you can check out the film of the documentary of Sidney at MTNOPS.com, MTNOPS.com/Sid, SID. And I encourage people to go and check that out, and encourage people to get out and use their fitness, use their bodies. And if you got things that are holding you back, life's not over.
No.
Fight through it.
Just a bump in the road.
Just a bump in the road. It certainly does, for me, it certainly does provide a reality check for me when I see someone that's an amputee at the gym or going to the gym or working out. So that's why I like to follow you on Instagram, which is Try No Feet, TRI.
Yeah.
Underscore?
Yep. Underscore. No feet.
No feet. NOFEET.
Yep.
And I like following your posts and stuff, because the days that I'm like, I got this sore spot, I'm going to take the day off. It's like there's Sid out there with no legs running, and I'm complaining about, a stiff knee. So I think, it's always, there's a few people I like to follow like that, because they put things in perspective for me, and also make me more grateful for what I have, and get me out there. I heard, one of the things I always use, I heard Jocko Willing talk about this. He's like, if you're feeling sore or tired, and so you're like, I'm going to take today off. He's like, don't take today off. Go to the gym, or go to do your workout, go to your garage, whatever you're going to do, go for your run. Go for your run anyway, and then take the next day off if you're still too tired.
As well. Because
usually you're not that tired, it's just your weakness talking.
Yeah.
And by the time the next day rolls around, you're actually feeling just fine, and you'll go to the gym. So don't procrastinate. The day that you feel like procrastinating, or taking a rest, take it the next day.
Save it.
Put
it in a box.
And if you still feel crummy the next day, then take a day off. And I have found that has kept me far more consistent by doing that than by actually just taking the day off because I just felt like it. I'm like, my rule is not today, but tomorrow. And then when tomorrow comes, 99% of the time, I don't need that break, So there's nothing in life worth having that doesn't take work. I mean, the best things in life come from work. Yeah. It just comes from discipline and making it happen. And there's not a lot that's good in life that you get that just comes easy. Mm-hmm. It's stuff that you had to sacrifice for that really matters.
Yeah, it's not worth it. It's like winning a race. Are you just going to show up and get a medal? Or are you going to try to do the race and then get the medal? So.
Yeah. Yep. All right, folks. Thanks for tuning in to the Gritty Bowman. Check out Try No Feet and Sid's film. And as always, stay gritty. Yeah. Despite our ever-changing, ever-indignant world with its growing ignorance of and indifference to the ways of the wild, I remain a predator, pitying those who revel in artificiality and synthetic success while regarding me and my kind as relics of a time and place no longer valued or understood. I stalk a real world of dark wood and tall grass stirred by a restless wind blowing across sunlit water and beneath star-strewn sky. And on those occasions when I choose to kill, to claim some small part of nature's bounty for my own, I do so by choice, quickly, with the learned efficiency of a skilled hunter. Further, in my heart and mind, I know the truth and make no apologies for my actions or my place in time. Others around me may opt to eat only plants, nuts, and fruits. Still others may employ faceless strangers to procure their meats, their leather, their feathers, and all those niceties and necessities of life. Such is their right, of course. and I wish them well. All I ask in return is no one begrudge me, and all of us who may answer the primordial stirrings within our hunter souls, my right to do some of these things myself. What you just heard is a quote from M.R. James. We truly live in a world that is largely ignorant and indifferent to the ways of the wild. And although some regard us as relics of a time and place no longer valued or understood, we have the opportunity to change the way these people view the hunter and the hunt. We can share our experiences and nature's bounty with those who employ these faceless strangers. And by so doing, we make a difference, not just for ourselves, but for the wild animals in the wild places we care so deeply about. Never stop sharing your passion for hunting and the outdoors. Our wild animals and our wild places depend on it.
This is Ty Stubblefield, and you're listening to The Gritty Bowman.
Gritty Bowman.